Hello there, Birdie here with another video for the Middle-earth strategy battle game. This time I'm going to do an army analysis for the Fiefdoms, one of my favourite armies. Sadly they have been changed significantly since the previous edition. So the plan for the video is we will go through each of the different components of the army. We'll rate them and discuss their profiles and special rules, etc. We'll then move on to the strengths and weaknesses of the Fiefdoms, how to use them in competitive play, different army types and styles in terms of how you can build a Fiefdoms list. We'll then discuss army building and the key questions. We'll look through a number of example army lists, and then last of all, we will discuss the final army rating, how it holds up, and come to a conclusion about the army. So without further ado, let's start with the main man himself, Prince Imrahill, with the lovely new model that you can see on the right hand side. Now, Imrahill has been changed significantly since the previous edition. So he has now gone up to fight 7, which is nice. He's strength 4, defense 7, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, courage 4+, intelligence 3+, and 3 might, 3 will, 3 fate. He comes as standard with heavy armour, a shield and a hand weapon, with the option of giving him an armoured horse and a lance for 30 points. Comes with a nice heroic suite of heroic defence, resolve, strike and strength, and he has 2 special rules. So lineage of Numenor means that Imrahill's standfast is 12 inches, not 6 inches. Nice for holding your army together. And then Damroth for Gondor. Other friendly Damroth models treat Imrahill as a banner with a range of 6 inches. Now, I'm hoping you heard the key word there, where it says other friendly Damroth models, meaning he does not banner himself, which is annoying. Also, because the army bonus for the Fiefdoms, I should have said this at the start actually for you, they get 2 special rules. One is the first turn in which this army would be broken and normally would take courage tests, they automatically pass all courage the first turn they break. And the other one is leaders of the Fiefdoms. If a friendly hero charges into combat during the fight phase, friendly infantry within 6 of that hero that share both of the same faction keywords, because everyone in here has Gondor, but they also have their specific fief within the Fiefdoms as a keyword. You gain a +1 to wound when making strikes. There is no longer the asterisk rules where they apply to all models in the army. So what that means is Imrahill's 6-inch banner no longer affects himself, and it no longer affects all Fiefdoms troops and heroes. All it affects is Damroth models. So captains of Damroth, knights of Damroth, and the men-at-arms of Damroth. And that is it. So not only is it no longer a 12-inch banner, it's now a 6-inch banner. It now has limited use in who it actually impacts. So although he's had the nice Fight 7 buff, he's gained nothing else, been made significantly worse, and taking him on the armoured horse with the lance means he is 190 points for, I'm sorry, but not a profile that's worth 190 points. So going on to his rating, hero killing, we have, I'll put him as a 7. He has the lance when he's charging. His issue is if he loses his horse or he's not getting the charge, he will be stuck at strength 4, and any hero that's D7 is going to be a little bit of a roadblock for him. So it can't be any higher than a 7. Troop killing, I'll put him at an 8, because strength 4 is normally pretty good to deal with troops anyway, When he gets the charge, he's got the knockdown and the lance, and he's very good at getting the kill. Fight 7 means he gets over the top of all infantry. He's good at going into troops. And then dealing with monsters, I'll put him as 7. Again, with the lance, with the high fight value he's got, he can strike up above them potentially, can put damage out with the lance. It's just very dependent on him staying on his horse, and he doesn't have anything like horse lord or anything like that, so he can quite easily lose it. So you have got to be careful. Survivability, I've put him as an 8 though. He is defense 7. He can shield. He's got heroic defense as well, so he's a very survivable leader for you. In terms of price, however, I've put him as a 2, because if you compare him to similar comparable heroes, I'd say for the good side, if you want to compare him to Thranduil or Dane on foot perhaps, they're both a little bit cheaper than him, even when you take them with all the options, and they're better profiles. Thranduil, as an example, he is fight 7, just like Imrahill, strength 4, but hits at strength 5 with his elk, also has impact hits. He's only defense 6 to Imrahill's 7, and he doesn't have heroic defense, but he can hand and a half. He's got the elk to hit at strength 5, so he's not reliant on always having the charge. He's a better profile all round. He's a banner for everyone. He provides +1 to wound in a small bubble as well. He doesn't banner himself, but Imrahill is considerably overpriced. I get the feeling that when Games Workshop have designed the rules for the fiefdoms, they've put them together relatively quickly, and the rules in the last edition were exactly like this, the wording, but then in the army bonus you had the asterisk that said all these apply to everyone, and it just seems to have been overlooked. So Imrahill has still got the price tag of a guy with a fantastic all-encompassing banner effect, but he no longer has an all-encompassing banner effect, so it's not great. So price 2. Magic, I've given him a 5. He is weak to magic, but he has got 3 wills, so he can at least shrug off 1 or 2 spells before he becomes immobile for the whole game. But yeah, it's not great if you're paying nearly 200 points for him and he's just going to be stuck doing nothing. Special rules, I've given him a 5. Him being a 6 banner for his Knights of Damroth is nice, but it's not good enough considering what he used to be. And then Might, Will and Fate, giving him a 6. It's a 3/3/3, which is great, but there's no special rules, there's no way for him to get any back, no General Hunter, Blood and Glory, nothing like that. So because he doesn't banner himself, if you do take him on the horse and he charges in, he's got 60-odd% chance that he'll get a 6, but you might be burning his might quite quickly, and it's quite precious. So yeah, 3/3/3 is not ideal for him actually. And personal use, using him in this new edition, considering he's been one of my favourite characters in Lord of the Rings for the last 20 years, and in the game he's always been my go-to hero that I've used for my good armies. I'm sad to say he's not very good in this edition. He's not a bad profile, he's just far too expensive, so your army really suffers and you feel it. You really feel it when you're using him. So sadly, final rating 5.8. It's very sad. Next we move on to Angor the Fearless. Now this is the only hero profile in the fiefdoms that has been improved, and I still think they haven't gone far enough. So Angor is 70 points. He's the leader of the Lamadon forces. He's fight 5, strength 4, defense 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 5+, intelligence 7+, and he's got 2 might, 2 will, 2 fate. Wargate is armour and his two-handed weapon broadsword, no additional options, and he has march and strike. His special rules, he is fearless. He has mighty blow, meaning that he deals 2 wounds for every 1 wound that he successfully causes. And then Chief of Lamadon means that all other friendly Lamadon models within 3 inches of him also become fearless. So changes from last edition is Mighty Blow has now been added to his profile, and he's lost a will point but gained a fate point. Now this does make, these 2 things make a massive difference to Angor, because his 3 will never really needed 3 will, because he was very rarely targeted by the opponent with magic, with someone like Imrahill running around nearby, or even Forong previously. And he's fearless, so you don't need it for courage tests. So him gaining a fate point and losing a will point is fantastic, because in previous iterations of him, you'd send him into combat against a guy in a space support, and if he had a really bad roll and lost it, because he was only D5, the opponent rolls 2 5s, you fail your fate, and he's dead. Whereas now, with 2 fate, he feels a lot more durable, and you can send him in, and if you do lose the odd fight, it's not too bad. You just kind of let it happen and he's okay. The Mighty Blow also means he can do a lot of damage, especially against trapped models. He can put out some damage. With him having Strike and the Mighty Blow, he's really good as a secondary support character. With him not being your leader, you can be relatively aggressive with him, going into enemy monsters or heroes, and he can regularly flash kill them. If you give him support, men-at-arms pike support, guarantee that he's got more dice to make sure he wins the fight, and some sort of banner nearby. He is excellent. Gone up 5 points in price from previous edition, but I think is very, very good now. Much better than he was previously. A hero killing, giving him a 6+, because the only drawback to him getting that damage is that he's only fight 5. Yes, he can strike, but it's only from fight 5. So the highest he can get is fight 8, and that's if you're lucky. So he can kill heroes, but he needs to win the fight first, which is not guaranteed. Troop killing, I've given him a 6, because if he wins fights, he is regularly killing. If they're not trapped, he is stuck to only 2 dice. It's a pity he's not either 3 attacks or 3 might. One or the other would have really helped him out to make him more reliable. But he's still a very good troop killer. And then on top of that, going into monsters, he again can do a lot of damage. His problem is just winning the fight. So I've given him a 6 for all of those. Survivability as well, I've now put him up at a 6, which would have been much lower previously. That extra fate point surprisingly makes a huge amount of difference to him. And the ability of him just to strike in general means that heroes are less likely to go into him, because there's more chance that he could. There is always that chance that he could just strike above them and cause them a problem. Price, I've given him an 8, because if you think Imrahill is nearly 3 times his price, and you're not getting that much more out of Imrahill, you're getting an extra attack, an extra might, a bit more defense, and a fight 7. Is all that worth 3 times the cost? I don't think so. I think Angor is good value for what he provides you. It's a pity he is only 2 might. 3 might would have been perfect, but otherwise, very, very good. For magic, I've given him only a 4, because he now only has the 2 will. If somebody was to choose to target him, he doesn't have much to resist against it. And then for special rules, I've given him a 7, because having Fearless on a character is fantastic. Just means he's definitely going to stick around. Mighty Blow really, really helps him out. And then the Chief of Lamadon, it doesn't really make much difference. They're relatively courageous anyway, but it's just nice to have. Also, especially if he gets tagged after you've broken, just because he's nearby to them, they would also automatically pass. Might Will and Fate, I've given him a 5. He's less than Imrahill, of course, so I can't put him higher than that. 222, pretty standard, middle of the road. Might well fit. And from a personal use, though, I'm giving him an 8 because I've now taken him to multiple tournaments since the new book came out, the third book. And he's very rarely died in any... I think he's died in maybe one in about 9 to maybe about 12 tournament games. Maybe he's died once, maybe twice. He's done a lot of damage. He's killed a lot of heroes. He's also done a lot of damage and killed monsters. He's killed a Watcher. He's killed Cave Drake. He's killed a few trolls and things as well. So he's done very, very well. I've been very impressed using him. So 6.2 rating for Angor. Next, we move on to Forong the Fat. Now, Forong sadly no longer can take a horse, so he is now stuck to being on foot. He is the leader of the Lozanak Axeman. Fight 5 with Strength 5, Defense 6, 2 attacks, 3 wounds, Courage and Intelligence 6+, with 3 might, 1 will, 1 fate. Comes equipped with heavy armour, a hand weapon, a spear, and the Horn of Lozanak. No options, as I say, no horse for him now, and his only heroic action is heroic strength. He does have 2 special rules though, which is Horn of Lozanak and the Lord of Lozanak. So the Horn is a unique war horn, so it does give you +1 courage to everyone in your army. And once per game, at the beginning of his activation, Forong can choose to use the horn, and if he does, friendly models within 12 inches of him count as having terror. Now, that sounds like it's a good rule, but the problem is it's when you activate, so that means you're moving first. So if you're moving first, how useful is it to you that people are causing terror? Really, it's just if you're wanting to make that charge. And you're worried about your opponent counter-charging or flanking, you can use it to maybe hold them up and cause them some problems. It won't be that good against good armies, but against evil armies it could be useful. It's not a bad special rule to have, and it's still a war horn for the whole army, which is nice. And then the other thing you get with him is Lord of Lozanak, which is other friendly Lozanak models within 3 inches of him can re-roll to wound rolls of a natural 1. So the Axemen nearby will get to re-roll 1s, which can help increase the damage output. Forong's a bit of a different character now. So he was previously, you had him on a horse and you sent him into troops, and 3 attacks with 3 might behind him that you'd use to force the duel rolls. When he knocked them down, he would do a lot of damage. And it was a war spear that he had, so it gave him a +1 to wound. However, now he's lost the horse, and he's still only fight 5, and he's got no strike, and he's only 2 attacks. If you put him in against infantry, it's not many dice to win a fight. You've got maybe a space support, maybe pike support to give him extra dice, but it's still not amazing, and he's now really become more of a might caddy that you keep behind your line and you place him where you want him for a heroic move each turn. And his 3 wounds durability and his warhorn being useful to you is what you're keeping around really for the late game. And possibly objectives of like protecting a character, that sort of thing. So in terms of hero killing now, he doesn't have much hero killing potential. Yes, he's strength 5, which is nice. But he can't strike. He's stuck at fight 5. There's a lot more fight 5 and higher about there now. And he's only got 2 attacks. So, yeah, he's not ideal for this sort of thing. Troop killing, I've given him a 6. I still think he is decent. If you get him space support on some sort of banner nearby, he can kill some troops for you quite reliably, but that's probably what he's best at now. In terms of going into monsters, I've only given him a 4 because, again, he can't strike up to their level. He's lost his horse and his extra hitting power, so he's just stuck at 2 attacks at strength 5. He can do a little bit of damage to him, but it's not great for him. Survivability, though, 6. He is nice survivable, similar to Angor. So he's 3 wounds and 1 fate compared to Angor's 2 wounds, 2 fate. but Forong does have defense 6, which is nice. But without the ability to strike defensively, he is a little more vulnerable as well. So I think him and Angor have put them similar survivability ratings. Price, I've given him a 6 because I still think his price is pretty decent. Warhorns are 25 points, and you're getting that in the list for free. He brings 3 might points into the list, which is nice as well. He's quite survivable with the 3 wounds. So yeah, he's a decent value. I think he's ever so slightly too high. I think he should be about 80 for what he gives you, but I'm okay with 90. Magic, I've given him a 2. He's got 1 will, no resistance. If your opponent wants to do magic on him, they're going to do magic on him. You can't do much about it. Special rules, giving him a 5. The Warhorn's great. That's the main reason he's getting 5. The Lord of Lozanak rule and the other special rule as part of the Horn are not amazing, but situation that could be useful for you. Might Will Fate, I've given him a 5. The 1 Fate and 1 Will is not very good, but the 3 Might is excellent, and considering there is a need for Might in the Fiefdoms list, it really does come in handy. And then from a personal use rating, I've given him a 5. He's nowhere near as fun as he once was, but he still serves a purpose in the army. And final rating brings him out as a 4.8. Next, we'll move on to Dwinhair, the Lord of the Blackroot Vale. He is fight value 4, shoot value 3+, with strength 4, defense 5, 2 attacks. I'm really sorry, that should say 2 wounds. I've obviously forgotten to change that when I moved from Forong to Dwinhair. He is only 2 wounds. Courage 7+, intelligence 6+, with 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate. Comes equipped with armour, a hand weapon, a spear, and a bow. No additional options. He has heroic accuracy and defense, with 4 special rules. He has Mountain Dweller, which allows him to go through rocky terrain as though it's open ground. He has a Sharpshooter rule, meaning that if he makes a shooting attack targeting a cavalry model, he gets to choose which one of the 2 he's hitting, whether it's the rider or the mount. Go for the Eyes means Dwinhair rerolls fail to hit rolls when shooting at an enemy monster, and if he successfully wounds it, they take D3 wounds, not just 1 wound. And then last of all, Lord of the Blackroot Vale. Other friendly Blackroot Vale models within 3 inches of Dwinhair can re-roll to hit rolls of a 1 when making a shooting attack in the shoot phase, as long as they haven't moved. So he is your shoot battery if you want to run Fiefdoms that way. You run him with a block of Blackroot Vale, call heroic shoots with either him or other heroes nearby, and they'll be hitting 3s, re-rolling 1s to hit. He'll get re-rolls against monsters to wound as well. He can also sharpshoot against cavalry. He is one of the best archers in the game, but he's got some shortcomings as well. So the fact he's only defense 5 with 1 fate, 2 wounds, means he can be killed quite quickly. He's got heroic defense, but you're regularly using his might for other things, such as his shooting or calling a heroic shoot. He's only fight 4, so when he does get into a fight, it's not great. And it leads to a playstyle of you wanting to stand and shoot with your Blackroot Vale, but they're very low defense, low fight value. When your opponent gets into you, eventually, your Blackroot Vale melt very quickly. They've also got very poor courage, which Dwinhair also has, only courage 7+ with 1 will. So there's a 58% chance that he passes every time he does a courage test. But that means you've got a 42% chance he fails. With 1 will behind him, it reduces it down to about 25% chance of a fail, but once you've spent that will, yeah, it's there's a decent chance he'll run away for you after you've broken. So moving on to the ratings, I've given him a hero killing of a 3. He can potentially do some shooting damage to a hero, but is unlikely to ever kill one outright. He might just wound one if he's lucky. He won't do much to them in combat. Troop killing, I've given him a 5. Once he gets into combat at fight 4 with 2 attacks and strength 4, he's okay. He's just like a bog standard captain type figure for like some of the lesser factions. But he will kill some troops normally on the way in with his shooting, which is good. For monsters, I've given him a 5. Although it sounds great on paper that he does D3 wounds to monsters and rerolls fail to wound against them, you're doing that with a strength 2 bow. Most monsters are defense 7 or higher. He needs 6s by 4s. It's not great, if I'm honest. It doesn't come off often. Survivability, I've given him a 4. It probably would be lower if it wasn't for the fact he does have heroic defense. So if you do save a might point on him and somebody big gets into him, it's a nice little way to hold them up. It can be useful sometimes. Price, I've given him a 5. I think his price is okay for what he does. I think he should be cheaper. I think he should be more like 55 points. Again, I think everything in this Fiefdoms list is too expensive. It should be about 55. If you compare him to similar heroes, like if you compare him to an evil version, if you compare him to Narzug, as an example, Narzug's, I think he's 55 points, Narzug, and it's almost the same stat line across the board. It actually might be the exact same stat line, if I'm honest. But Narzug gets 2 shots a turn and gets a 3 point of might towards shooting. So arguably Narzug is better than Dwinhair, but Dwinhair's more expensive. Dwinhair has heroic defense. That's the... really, what you're paying the tax on for Dwinhair is the fact he can help the Blackroot Vale archers be more effective. Final rating for Dwinhair, 4.3. Next we move on to the Captain of Damroth. Now, this captain's profile hasn't really changed since last edition. Still fight 5, strength 4, defense 7, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 5+, intelligence 6+, 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate. Comes equipped with heavy armour, a shield and a hand weapon. You can optionally take an armoured horse and a lance for 30 points. Has heroic march, and then a Pride of Damroth special rule, which means when within 3 inches of Imrahill, this model gains a bonus of +1 to their fight value. So this means that you can get him up to fight 6. Taking him with them mounted on the horse and the lance is 95 points. It is very expensive, really, for a captain. He can lose the horse very, very easily, and it's 30 points down the drain. His hero killing potential is... I put him as a 4 because he can do damage to them, and getting up to fight 6 near Imrahill is useful. But without Imrahill nearby, or even with Imrahill nearby and the inability to strike, can still be susceptible. If he loses his horse or doesn't have the charge, a bit like Imrahill, can be stuck at strength 4, not doing much damage. Troop killing, giving him a 5. His fight value will generally outdo most troops, and especially when charging, there is some hitting power there. It's just not the most reliable, because you're relying on move-offs to make sure you're going first. For monsters, I've given him a 3. He's not really cut out. He can do damage to them, but he's unlikely to win the fight against them. He needs help, really, in the fight to be able to have the chance to wound them. And then survivability, I've given him a 5. The defense 7 is really nice. Against strength 4 models, especially heroes, he can really target them quite nicely. But with only 1 fate, if people get some lucky 6s, you can just lose him out of nowhere, which can be rather annoying. Price, I've given him a 6. I think on foot, 65 points is a nice price for him. Sadly, the armoured horse and lance is extremely expensive. And I don't think that's good value at all, considering how easy it is for him to lose the horse. Magic, I've given him a 2. Similar to Forong, if the opponent wants to do magic on him, they're going to do magic on him. You can't do much about it. 1 will is not going to resist much for very long. Then for special rules, I've given him a 6 because the ability for a captain to get up to fight 6 is really handy. And if he is near Imrahill and they're getting into things, you can use him in conjunction with some knights to do some reliable damage on the charge. Then Might Will Fate, giving them a 4, just bog standard captain profile. And personal use, I find the captain fun to use. The model on foot in particular I think looks great. And they are reliable and survivable and just grind through your opponents slowly on the front lines. I really like taking them on foot. Mounted, I think it's a bit of a trap. Overall rating, 4.4. Next we move on to the Knights of Damroth. So we're now on to the warriors within the list. So Knights of Damroth, they are Fight 4, Strength 3, Defense 6, 1 attack, 1 wound, Courage 6+, Intelligence 6+. They are 11 points. They come armed with heavy armour, a shield and a hand weapon. And you've got a lot of options for them. You can give them an armoured horse and a lance for 9 points, making them 20 points in total for a mounted knight. You can give them a banner and a horse, a war horn and a horse, a banner and a war horn. Now, you're probably never going to need to take them with a war horn because if you really wanted a war horn in your list, you'd just take Forong. And in terms of banner, you wouldn't normally take a banner in Fiefdoms because Imrahill is your banner. However, there is now a potential viability to actually take their banner, considering he is sadly no longer affecting the whole army. So unless you run all pure Damroth, there might actually now be a case for taking a Damroth banner. Their special rule is Pride of Damroth, just like the captain. They get a +1 fight value when they're within 3 inches of Imrahill. So they can go up to 5 fight value 5, but it's only in a small 3-inch bubble around him. For hero killing, I've given them a 2. They're slightly better than other troops because they can get to fight 5. So if you're up against some fight 5 heroes or fight 4 heroes, even better, they could win the fight or cause them problems. And you do have the ability to shield to hold them up as well. Troop killing, I've given them a 3. They've got the fight value to do okay. They are survivable against enemy troops with the defense 6. And in this army, when they're charging, getting the bonus to wound, the +1 or more, depending on Imrahill and captains around them charging. They can do some damage, but it's situational depending on if you're charging or not. For dealing with monsters, I've given them only a 2. They're not meant for that at all. That's not their purpose. They can't really do any damage to it. The only thing they can do is hold it up with shielding, potentially. The only way they're really going to do any wounding is if they've got the charge and they've got heroes nearby that give them the +1s. Survivability, I've given them a 4. The D6 is really nice. It's the only D6 you've got access to in this list. They're your anti-shooting frontline, albeit it's an expensive anti-shooting frontline. Their profile is basically identical to a man of Minas Tirith, other than better courage and intelligence, and you're paying 2 more points. It's not great value. So price, I've given them a 1. I think it's an atrocious value, 11 points for them. If you take them mounted, 20 points for the knight is atrocious value. I love them. The models look absolutely stunning. They're some of my best painted, favourite models that I own. But I've got to be honest, they are horribly overpriced. You're paying a premium for buffs that they no longer get. Magic, 1. It's just a troop. They're not resilient. Special rules, given them a 5. It is nice. They can get up to fight value 5. And then personal use, I've given them a 4. I still think there's a place for them in the list, despite them being overcosted. I still think you need some in the list. The chance to get to fight 5, the D6 they provide you, the better courage, they are useful to you. And you could even take a few of them to just stand behind your lines near a banner as your banner protection squad if you were going to run a banner. Final rating, 2.6. Then we move on to the Minotaurs of Damroth. Now these are part of Damroth as well. Fight value 4, strength 3, defense 5, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 7+, intelligence 7+. They've gone up to 10 points compared to their previous 9. They have heavy armour, a pike and a hand weapon. And again, Pride of Damroth, they can get a +1 fight value if they're near Imrahill or just Imrahill within 3 inches of him. Now these have gone up a point. Again, they're quite bad value, but they are your only access to pikes in the list. And I think some of these guys are quite useful and essential to the list, especially behind heroes like Angor, Forong, your captain, and Imrahill if he gets dismounted. They're not really cut out for killing heroes. They can go up to fight 5, which is nice, but that's about it. Troop killing of a 3. If you get them behind your lines and you've got 2 of them together, it gives you quite a few extra dice. They are quite useful for that. The pikes give them a +1 to wound against cavalry. That's nice as well. They're not cut out for dealing with monsters, and they're not very survivable. Only defense 5. They don't have the best fight value in the world. They do die very quickly when they get on the front lines. Price, I've given them a 2. I think they are bad value. I think these guys should really be 8 points, 9 at a push, but 10 is far too expensive for them, so I only take a few of them just to back up some heroes. They're not resistant to magic, no might, will, or fate. The special rule, I've given them a 5, because again, it is nice they can get to fight 5. And personal use, I've given them a 3. I like having just a couple of them in the list, just to back up some heroes, but no more than that. They're also extremely delicate and finicky with the long pikes, easily breakable. It's they're not the most fun to play with for that reason. Final rating, I've given them a 2.3. Next we move on to the Axeman of Lozanak. Now these are very unchanged since the last edition, which is they are 9 points from Lozanak, fight 4, strength 3, defense 5, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage and intelligence 7+. They have heavy armor, a hand weapon, and then the Axe of Lozanak. And the Axe of Lozanak allows them to use the axe as either a two-handed weapon or as a spear support, which is excellent. It makes them extremely versatile. In my opinion, these are the best troop in the Fiefdoms army list, and they are the essential backbone to a successful list. They are your damage dealers. They're somewhat survivable compared to their other damage outputting comrades with the Clansmen. Them being space supports makes them very useful as well for you. And if they are near Forong, they also get to reroll 1s to wound. So for hero killing, I've given them a 3. Although they're unlikely to win fights against heroes, if you can surround a hero with these guys and they lose the dual roll off, they lose the dual roll, then these guys can put out a lot of damage when two-handing. Troop killing, I've given them a 5. If you come up against dwarves or any sort of heavy armor defense list, these guys, you're going to want to get them on your front line. You want them to be two-handing all the time with space supports and banners nearby. And they can really go to town and put out a surprising amount of damage, especially when charging with an additional +1 to wound. You can get +2 to wound on these guys when Forong charges nearby. They can really put out some damage. Dealing with monsters, I've put them at a 3. They're not really cut out for dealing with monsters, but if they do win a fight against one, they can put damage out. Survivability, I've given them a 2. They're only defense 5. The fight value means that they will lose fights. And when they do die semi-regularly. Price, I've given them a 6. I think this is the right points cost for them. They are extremely versatile troops, the backbone of the army in my opinion, and I'm happy with that 6. They're not good value, they're just exactly where they should be. And then special rules, I've given them a 7. Just because of that Axe of Lozanak rule, it makes them extremely versatile. They are so useful in your list. Personal use, I've given them an 8. I think they're by far the best troop in Fiefdoms. Final rating then brings them out to a 4. Next we move on to the Clansmen of Lamadon. These are fight 4, strength 3, defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 6+, intelligence 8+. These are your angry Scotsmen that have weirdly become slightly less courageous than the last edition. And they're also rather dumb at only 8+ intelligence. So beware of spectres moving them around. They come equipped with armour and a two-handed weapon broadsword, and their Honour of Lamadon special rule means that within 3 inches of a friendly Lamadon hero, so in that case it's Angor, they re-roll any rolls of a natural 1 in the dual roll, which is nice. It's a partial banner. And if you have a space support behind them and there's a banner nearby, you've got the potential you get 2 re-rolls and maybe have 4 dice, which is nice. Hero killing, giving them a 3. They can do damage to a hero if they win the fight, but they've got to win the fight, which they're quite unlikely to do. Troop killing, I've given them a 4. If they do win fights, they actually do have a good chance of doing damage to enemy troops and killing. Again, it's just getting to win the fight that can prove the main difficulty for them. Dealing with monsters is not really their main thing, but because they can put out damage with the 2-handed weapon, and if Angor nearby charges with them, even better. I've given them a 3 for that. I've given them a survivability rating of a 1 because these guys die. They are extremely weak to shooting. They're extremely weak to most forms of damage, to be fair. Even hobbits are killing them on 5s. So you know there's a problem if that's happening. But their price, I think, is about fair. They're a little worse than an Axeman of Lozanak, so they are a point cheaper. That makes a lot of sense. Special rules, I've given them a 5. I actually like that little special rule where it gives them an extra dual roll, potentially. And generally you will run them near Angor, and you won't be running them in big numbers, you just run them in small numbers. And then on a personal use side of things, I gave them a 5. I find them really fun to use. They add a lot of character to your list, being the Angry Scotsman. The courage that they've got is decent. They're very cheap, courageous troops. So they can go and sit on an objective for you and should hold it for you, albeit they're not as reliable as they once were, which is sad. Final rating 3.1. Then we move on to Blackroot Vale Archers. Now these come in at 8 points. Fight value 3, shoot value 3+, strength 3, defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 8+, and intelligence 7+. They come equipped with armour, hand weapon, and a bow. You can give them a spear for a point, a banner for 25, or a warhorn for 25. Realistically, you're probably only ever going to take them with a spear. They have Mountain Dweller, and then they have Deadeye Shot, which is whenever a hero within 6 inches of them calls a heroic shoot, they can reroll all fail to wounds when shooting. Now, depending on what you're up against, if you're up against anything with D4 troops, this can be deadly. However, they only have strength 2 bows, so anything defense 5 and higher, they actually have a bit of trouble with. And can't really do that much damage to them. And then it almost feels like a waste of might when getting those rerolls might get you an extra kill. Sometimes it doesn't get you any, and it just feels very wasted. They have the potential to be extremely good archers if you roll well, but it doesn't happen often enough with all the times I've run them. They're quite a liability because they're only fight 3, defense 4, and they've got poor courage. So they lose fights, they die because they're low defense, and if they don't die, when you break, they run away. It's not a good mix considering when you've taken them with a spear, you're paying 9 points for them. In terms of hero killing, I've given them a 2. They're unlikely to do anything to them in combat, but there is always the chance they could do some damage to it through shooting, especially with the rerolls if you've chosen to do it. Troop killing, giving them a 3. They will do some damage with shooting, but don't expect much from them in combat. If you've got Dwinhair nearby charging, they can actually do a bit of damage with up to strength 5, but it's not ideal. Dealing with monsters, I've given them a 2. They've only got strength 2 bows, so they're not going to do much in shooting. And in combat, they're going to do even less for you, really, because they're not going to win a fight. Survivability, I've given them a 1. They are not survivable at all. They die or run away in droves. it's probably the biggest weakness. Price, I've given them a 4. I think they're overcosted. I think there should be 7 points and 8 with the spear. They've got too many weaknesses: weak fight value, weak strength, and weak courage. Special rules, I've given them 4. The Deadeye Shot is a nice rule, and when it works, it's brilliant, but it's not the easiest to pull off and get value out of. And from a personal use perspective, these are the only archers you've got in the list. I think it's essential you take some of them in every list. But they're not amazing either, so I've only given them a 4 with a final rating of 2.4. So, let's move on to discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the list, some of which I've already touched upon, but we will discuss further now. So this list has a lot of hitting power. You've got these +1 to wound bonuses. If you have Imrahill and a captain or multiple captains charging, you are getting a stacked +1 to wound. So if you had him and 2 captains charging, you could be getting +3 to wound. Considering you've also got 2-handers in the list with your Axeman and your Clansmen, you could be getting +3, +4 to wound, which is insane. You've got a lot of hitting power in this list. Your troops are rather versatile. You've got a different troop for different things. You've got some nice D6 durable knights with shields. You've got some heavy hitting Clansmen. You've got the Axeman that can spear support and do damage on the front line with the 2-handed axe. Blackroot Vale can be a spear support line while shooting, or they can just be an archer block. They are situationally good at shooting as well. You've got some good damage dealing heroes: Forong strength 5, Angor 2 hands. Imrahill's got his lancing charging. Even the captain can do some damage as well. You've also got a lot of staying power in late games. You've got predominantly good courage. Even better courage if you take Forong with his warhorn. You've got some fearless with Angor and his clansmen. Late game, when your opponent's army is broken and starting to run away, not much of yours should be running away, except perhaps your Blackroot Vale and Dwinhair. Moving on to weaknesses of the list, though, as you've probably heard me say as I've been going through this, almost everything in this list is too expensive for what the profile is when you compare it to other profiles in other lists. The biggest weakness, though, is the lost asterisks. All the synergies that you used to have all been destroyed. It's very sad. I try my best not to get too passionate in this video over it, but Fiefdoms being my favourite army in Lord of the Rings, and they've been butchered, really. They've had courage reductions, which were completely unnecessary to things like the Clansmen. Imrahill's profile has been destroyed on here because that's how it feels. 190 points is far too expensive for what his profile is now. You actually now may need to waste more points to add an actual banner into the list if you're taking anything other than just pure Damroth. And in this edition, because horses are more expensive, that hits Fiefdoms even harder, because your heroes like your captain and Imrahill, now it's even more expensive to mount them, so they're even more inefficient cost-wise than they already were. And it's too easy to be dismounted because none of them have Horse Lord. Moving on to how to use them competitively, I still think the army can be run semi-competitively. And you'll get used to playing them and how to run them, but best things I could advise is when you deploy, consider the board and your opponent's army in terms of how you want to deploy. This army is quite flexible with how you can deploy it. You can run, for instance, an archer block with all the archers together in a double rank, if you know your opponent is going to likely come towards you. Instead, you could have a long, thin line of frontline axemen and knights, and have your archers behind them as a spear support line that will still shoot on the way in. Also, if you look at your opponent, are you going to need damage output on the front line if you're against dwarves or shield walls for Minas Tirith or something? Do you need your Axemen on the front line, or are they okay being your space support line? A few different things to consider there. And deployment tip really would be keep your heroes safe from ranged fire. Any mounted units need to be protected or out of sight entirely, because they're so expensive and you really don't want to be wasting them or giving them away cheaply. When the game actually starts, in terms of gameplay, this army always wants to be charging to get those bonus to wound, so place your might carefully, considering where you want to call a heroic move the next turn. So I would say someone like Forong, you want to keep behind your line. Get Angor in, get Imrahill in, maybe even get your captains into the fights. But Forong wants to be behind the line, place him each turn where you might need a heroic move the next turn to get as many of your heroes charging as possible, so you can get the +1 to wound. Thinking about the need to call heroic moves and make sure you are charging to get those bonuses, you've got to be careful in this list not to waste might or be too aggressive with it early on, because you need it to make sure this army is charging. Use Forlong and the captains carefully as well. They don't have strike. You either need to use them as your might caddies, or you need to just get them into troops. Beware of enemy heroes and monsters. Don't get them killed. Don't get might taken off the board before you used it. Try to use them intelligently. I've now put on here, use Angor like a scalp pulse. Angor is a delicate piece to use, but when used well, if you support him well, get a lot of extra dice in the fight with him, trap things that you want to kill, he can do a lot of damage for you, but only if he can win a fight. The actual line is pretty good. They're very, very good at hitting, but they are only strength 2 bows. So unless you're running Dwinhair and like fully committing to an archery block, don't waste might on Deadeye Shot, heroic shooting. It will generally be a waste of might. You might get an extra kill, but is it really worth it for a point of might, 1 extra kill? Probably not. You need that might for other things. I'd say as well, pick your targets carefully. Try and look for whatever D4 you can in your opponent's list and target them with your archers. And last couple of things. Use your Foot Knight's D6 and ability to shield wisely. Choose favourable matchups. If your opponent has a section of their battle line that's only strength 3, you can charge your knights in there quite aggressively with impunity, because they're unlikely to take much damage back. And you've also likely got a superior fight value advantage. The shielding as well, they're the only source of shielding you've got in the list, so if you do need to avoid breaking your enemy or quartering them near the end of a game to guarantee you win on objectives, use their shielding to help you with that. It's why, despite them being slightly more expensive than they should be, they're still worth taking some of. And then last of all, I put pick your moment with the cavalry. Don't let them get dragged down. Don't overcommit. Don't be over-aggressive with them. Make sure they stay within heroic move range for the next turn. Use them wisely. They're very expensive. You don't want to be losing them. They can do a lot of damage for you. They can be really good, but you need to play with them carefully. Now, in terms of how you can build this army, I think there's 3 main ways you can build fiefdoms. You either build quite a versatile, balanced hammer and anvil, where you'll have D6 Foot Knights of Damroth as a front line, supported by either Axeman or Blackroot Vale, and you'd have a behind the line, and then you'd have Imrahill either behind the main shield wall or coming down from the side on the flanks of the enemy. So you either have a separation alleyway down the middle of your shield wall for him to be able to charge through the middle, or you have him hit down the flanks. And then what you want to do then is just pick the named heroes that match the troop choices you've gone with. So if you've gone for Blackroot Vale as your space support, take Dwinhair. If you've gone with the Axeman of Lozanak as your space support line, take Forlong. I think you would want a banner in that list, considering Imrahill would only be affecting some of your troops. and he will not always be right where you want him for the banner anyway. Now it's only 6 inches. The other way of building this is a pike block. Now this is if you go almost pure Damroth. You want to take knights on the front, backed up by Men-at-Arms of Damroth in the pike support line, and then you maybe just want a small token archery force of Blackroot Vale, just to provide some threat to your opponent. This works as a really strong bubble army. If you have Imrahill and captains nearby charging, you can get multiple +1 to wound bonuses on the charge. You've got Imrahill's banner affecting everyone, so you don't need to waste points on banner. He'll provide it to everyone but himself. It can really work, and then your archery force is just to tag objectives, cause a bit of a threat to your opponent. The only problem you've got with that list then would be you've got to stay in a bubble. It needs to stay together. A lot of the games and scenarios now want you to split up, and you've got to spread across the board. So a bubble pike block might not be the most optimal way of playing now. But I think there is some competitive viability to the style. And then the final way you could build this is you can try and go for a maxed out bowline of Blackroot Vale led by Dwinhair. Try and get cheap might into the list. Maybe don't take Imrahill or any knights. Take just Axeman perhaps and Clansmen with Blackroot Vale. And you want to use heroic shoots, gun down everything. It can work in some scenarios, in others it's not going to work for you. I'd say please don't play this way. It's not fun for anyone, but that is kind of an encouraged way of building fiefdoms. So, a few army building questions. Imrahill, first of all. Do you take Imrahill or do you not take Imrahill? I think in most fiefdoms lists, you still take Imrahill. The fight value increase and the 6-inch banner. Okay, you maybe now need to take an additional banner in the list, but he's still very useful to have. He's your only fight 7, he's your only big hitting guy. I think you kind of have to still take him in most lists. I think at small points you could maybe drop him, take Angor and Forong and Dwinhair, take the 3 small named heroes, take a normal banner, and you could maybe do okay, but then you've got no D6, your army's not as durable as it needs to be really. Named heroes or captains. Now, this depends on the build you're going for. If you're going for the pure Damroth build, and you're trying to get all the +1 to wounds, then you want to take just Imrahill and captains. If you want a more balanced force, I think you want all the named heroes, and you want to do a bit of a mix of all the different fiefdoms troops. And I think really that's how fiefdoms wants to be. It wants to be a mishmash of all the different fiefdoms troops. In terms of bows, you've got 2 real choices. You either take, I'd say, the minimum of 6 bows in every list, just so you've got a couple of little triangle archery, triangle of dooms to run around, just to hold objectives and cause a little bit of a threat to your opponent's horses and low defense stuff. Or you could take all Blackroot Vale as your space support line or archery block, and you can have 10, 12, 14 of them providing a real threat to your opponent. And then in terms of an actual banner, I think this list, unless you go pure Damroth now, I think this list really needs you to take a normal banner. Sad to say, because I don't actually own a normal banner for Damroth or Blackroot Vale, so I'm going to need to source one for myself. And mounted knights, they're very, very expensive. So I would say if you're running Imrahill mounted, you want a few with him. I'd say you want 2 to 3. I don't think you want any more than that, because they're so expensive, your numbers will be far too low, and then you won't have much might in the list either. 3 knights can get you one of the named heroes, so you can't be spending all your points on mounted knights. You definitely don't want to go all mounted either. And then the last one I've put on here is, do you need to have some clans? Because for all intents and purposes, the Axemen are better than Clansmen, and it's only a point more, so why would you take any Clansmen? And I'd say you want to take maybe 3 or 4 Clansmen in every list, just to sit on an objective, hold that for you, They've got decent courage. Having a few two-handers is nice. They had a bit of character and personality to your army. So let's move on to looking at a few example armies. So the first one I've got here for you is a 600-point army. Now this one I've tried to build as the first one, which is the hammer and anvil style, which would be Imrahill on a horse and lance, 190 points, 3 Knights of Damroth, mounted with 4 on foot, 1 Damroth guy with a banner, and then 5 Blackroot Vale archers with spears. And then in the second warband we have Forong the Fat, 12 Axemen of Lozanak, and 3 more Blackroot Vale with spears. This gives you 8 bows in the list. You can have the Blackroot Vale do their own little thing in little triangles, holding objectives and flanking, or you can have them as an 8-man archery block. If you've got your Knights of Damroth, you can have 4 of them backed up by the Axemen, with the Axemen also holding the flanks and a bit of the front line. The Axemen can be all over, front line, back line, whatever. You've got your Imrahill and Knights to either run off elsewhere or to hit with your main force. He will give them a banner and also fight 5 on the charge. Well, always, not just on the charge, but they're more effective on the charge. And the Knight of Damroth with banner can stay behind the line, preferably in base contact with a Blackroot Vale. So if he did die for any reason, you can pass him on to Blackroot Vale. But he's also a nice D6 banner for you. And this gives you 30 models at 600 points. It's a good quality army. You've got some fast, hard-hitting cavalry and infantry. 6 might, a little low, but really you don't want to be using the might for anything other than heroic moves if you can help it. Just to make sure you're charging. You've got a lot of hitting power. You've got a decent archery force as well. I think this is a relatively well-balanced 600 list. It's not going to win events at a canter. It's going to need to be played very, very well by a good pilot to pull this off, but it's a decent list for 600 points. Moving on to 700 points. This time I've gone for the Damroth pike block. So this is Imrahill mounted with 3 Knights of Damroth again on horse and lance, with 8 Blackroot Vale archers with spears. This gives you a nice little archery force block to run. And then Warband 2 and 3 are identical. It's a Captain of Damroth on foot, with 4 Knights of Damroth D6 on the front line, with 8 men-at-arms giving you the pike block behind. This is 38 models at 700 points, which is very good considering the quality of it. You've not had to waste any points on a banner, because Imrahill will banner everyone but himself in this list. You've got 7 might in the list, which is a little below average. I would prefer more, but again, you really just want to be using the might for heroic moves. And that's about it if you can help it. It's a decent bubble list. It will do well in some scenarios. It will struggle in others where it needs to split up, and it can't really, because it will suffer if you try to. But it's quite a decent long line, having an 8-man front line, up to 10 when you've got captains in there as well. You can leave an alleyway down the middle and have Imrahill charge down the middle to give you hitting power there, or you can have him come in from one of your flanks. And the Blackroot Vale can also thin down your opponent a little bit on way in. Moving on to 800 points, this one I've gone for the full soup, well-balanced list, including all the named heroes. So we've Imrahill mounted on his armoured horse and lance with 2 knights as well. Gives you a little cavalry force. We've got Angor with 5 clansmen, 4 men-at-arms and 4 axemen. It's a nice balanced warband that can kind of run by itself if needed. You've got 8 different possible pike and spear supports behind 6 guys at the front. Your axeman can also end up on the front if you needed. You've got Forong, who again has a warband that can kind of function by itself, which is him with 8 axemen, which would be a 4x4 rank, with 2 Knights of Damroth just to stand with the banner as a banner little defence squad. This would be because that then gives you the opportunity to have Imrahill go off with the cavalry if they need to do a little objective somewhere else or kill a little warband somewhere. And Angor and Forong can team up with that hard-hitting, charging warband with a banner. And then Dwinhair, last of all, you've got Dwinhair with 11 Blackroot Vale archers with a spear. Now, I've given them all a spear because it allows, if you wanted to, you can run them as a spear line behind the knights and the axemen, or you can run them as their own archery block. So it's very versatile for deployment, depending on what you're up against and how you want to play it. 800 points, you've got 41 models, you've got 10 might, which is pretty good. You've got a really dangerous archery force of 12 guys. You've got good quality in there. You've got all the named heroes with special rules. You've got the charging bonuses as well, if all of them get the charge off. Again, you just want to use Forong carefully for the heroic moves. I think this is probably the best of the lists. Nice and well balanced. I think I could take this to a tournament and push for a podium with good piloting. It's not the best list in the world at 800 by all means. It's not meta, but I think it's decently competitive and decent quality considering the troops that I've got, 41 models. So final ratings then for the Fiefdoms is, can it deal with big heroes? Imrahill is your best bet at that. Angor can try depending on if he can strike up high enough. But actually, even against big heroes, you can just plough into them with a lot of your normal troops, your two-handers in particular. Or if your heroes have charged nearby and get the +1 to wound on even your normal guys, you can do some damage to them. You're just relying on them not rolling a 6. But the list can do okay with heroes. Against high defense, I've given this army a 9. There's so much two-handing and all this additional bonusing to wound. Your heroes are quite big hitting as well. It's almost a 10. But I've given it a 9 because it does depend a lot on the charge. For facing hordes, I've given the list a 7. I think it's you've got versatile, decent quality troops. You've got hitting power, whether it's your archery, whether it's your front line, whether it's the quality of your troops to make sure you're winning most of the fights against hordes. You can also get reasonably okay numbers in this list, so I think you can deal with hordes okay. Cavalry, I've given it a 6. There's definitely the hitting power in the list to cut them down when they win fights, but it's going to be a very swingy game because the opponent, being a cavalry army, is going to want to charge all the time, and your list wants to charge all the time, so the game's going to mostly come down to who wins the move-offs. Going on to monsters, I've given it a 5. Only really Imrahill and Angor have got a chance of getting up to and above the fight values of enemy monsters. You can do a lot of damage to monsters with your normal troops, but again, you're relying on them making a mess of their duel roll, which is never the best strategy. Dealing with magic is this list's biggest problem, so I've given it a 2. You've got no real resistance anywhere. There's not much will around your heroes. It's not great at all. You just become magic casters' playthings. It's not good. It's the worst thing to see when you're a fiefdom player, when you go to a board and you see casters on the other side. You just think, I'm in for a rough game here. And up against Terror, I've given it a 5. You've got mostly decent courage across the army. You've got Forong with a Warhorn as well, so that will negate a Harbinger if there is one. You've also got some Fearless with Angor and the Clansmen that can do really well getting into terror-causing models. So final rating for Fiefdoms, I've given it 5.7. It's a great-looking army, in my opinion, with so much character and personality. It's sadly been badly nerfed since last edition, which I don't think was necessary. It's not like Fiefdoms was dominating the meta in the last edition anyway. It seems very unnecessary. You are lacking in important areas in this list, and the synergies have been significantly reduced. I think this army can still do alright if it's piloted well and placed well and you deploy right. You can do okay with it, and I think top half of even GBHL events, I think you can definitely finish top half, and a good player, a really good player, can just about podium with them if they play it well. I'm going to try my best to prove that over the coming month, and try and podium with a Fiefdoms list. I've only taken a variation of a Fiefdoms list to one GBHL event so far. I did win all my games with it, but I'll come on to how I managed to do that in a moment. I think if you're running a pure Fiefdoms list, it's going to be difficult because there is some matchups that just you really don't have answers to. Magic, or also things like the Balrog. You're just kind of praying for a bad roll from the opponent. So getting the most out of the Fiefdoms. Now let's move on to this. So I think pure Fiefdoms is not the right way of running the Fiefdoms in this edition at the moment, until there's some sort of FAQ or rules change. There are 3 lists you can alternatively take Fiefdoms in. There is the Grief of Aemir list, which is not very good. I'm not even going to discuss it. The list is not very good. Don't bother with it, unless you really, really love that theme. Or you're really in love with Aemir and want to fight 7 Aemir. You can run Fiefdoms in Men of the West, which is interesting. You can only take Knights of Damroth and Men at Arms of Damroth, but if you want to go pure Fiefdoms with the Imrahill banner being maximised, it's quite useful. And you also have Elisar's 1-turn game where he can give a +1 fight value, so you could potentially have fight 6 Damroth troops, which is nice. Or you can do Defenders of the Pelennor. Now, Defenders of the Pelennor gives every hero in your list a free heroic combat once a game. You also have access to all the Fiefdoms troops and heroes, exactly as they are in the Fiefdoms list. You do lose the +1 to wound when the hero charges, but you're gaining the free heroic combats for all of your heroes choose. So that means you've got extra might on the board, really, it feels like. So I've built a little example list for you. So at 800 points, you can take Gandalf on Shadowfax with Pippin for 250 points. Get yourself a Knight of Minas Tirith. Now, if you compare that to Dol Amroth Knight, they're both fight 4, they're both strength 3, they both have a lance, they're both defense 6. The only thing you get extra for 5 points more is +1 courage and +1 intelligence. And the chance of getting a fight value increase if you're within 3 inches of Imrahill. That is not worth 5 points. The Knights of Minas Tirith are way better value than the Knights of Dol Amroth. It's very, very sad. The Knights of Dol Amroth look amazing, but they are shocking value. Warriors of Minas Tirith with a shield, 4 of those, and 4 more with shield and spear. Again, the Warriors of Minas Tirith with a shield have the exact same profile as a Knight of Dol Amroth. They're just 2 points cheaper, and the only thing, again, you're missing out on is the potential fight value 5 if you're near Imrahill, and the +1 courage and intelligence. Again, it's most likely not that worth it. So you can take them, save some points there. Now, I've still taken Angor the Fearless because I think Angor the Fearless is good value and he's been improved this edition. He is the one thing in Fiefdoms that's really good now and been improved. He gives you a secondary striker in the list. He can do a lot of damage as well, just like Gandalf can. Gandalf gives you the magic protection. He can protect your other heroes. He can protect himself. He's a good survivable leader. He's got heroic strike and defense, just like Imrahill. You've got casting in there as well. He's only 60 points more than Imrahill, but you're getting a lot more survivability. You're getting Pippin giving you an extra might point. You're getting resistant to magic. You're getting spells. You're getting Shadowfax being a much more survivable mount. And you're getting a free heroic combat on each of your heroes in this list. With Angor, I've given him still 4 Clansmen because he's got the little dual roll that you can give them as well. They also do a bit of damage. They've also got decent courage to hold objectives. 6 Axemen of Lozanak behind him, with 2 men at arms to stand behind Angor to help him out. I've gone with Iralas for 65 points, with 6 Citadel Guard with longbows and 6 with spears. They would run as their own little block, and a little, again, +1 to wound bubble, so if you need that and you're missing it from Fiefdoms, you've got it with Iralas instead. He's also quite handy to have heroic defense on. He's fight 5. He's also got 2 fate, unlike Dwinhair's 1 fate. He's a much better profile than Dwinhair, the same price, and more survivable. And then last of all, I've got Halbarad with the banner of Arwen Evenstar in this list. So he gives you a 6-inch banner that affects everyone in the list, including your leader Gandalf, who will be much more reliable than Imrahill. And it also gives you a 6-inch Fearless bubble, which is amazing. This is almost the same amount of models as the other list I showed you of pure fiefdoms, but you've got an extra might point, 3 heroic combats, you've got casting in there, Pippin's useful for dropping off and getting an extra 3 heroic combat, or just dropping him off at an objective. You've got a Fearless bubble, you've got a heroic defensor that can be useful for you, you've still got +1 to wound, you've got better shooting, wounding potential with the longbows, without having to spend might. And you've got better value troops with the Warriors of Minas Tirith and the Knight of Minas Tirith. So I ran a watered down version of this list at 700 points. And as I say, I won all 3 of my games with it. I missed out on the podium. My wins weren't quite big enough. That partially down to me, and also the opponents I played very well. They were good opponents, and they were low scoring scenarios. But yeah, it really did work, and it could definitely have podiumed for me. Gandalf is extremely good in this edition. I'd say for 60 points, he is an absolute mile better than Imrahill. It's really sad. He's one of the best characters in the books, is Imrahill. I absolutely love him. But he doesn't really have a place at the moment for me from a competitive side of things. So, sorry to end on that sad note with it. I hope it's given you some inspiration and helped with list building. I still would like to see people take fiefdoms. It's a beautiful army on the table. You never have a bad game when you play it or against it. It's always fun to run. It's not as competitive as it previously was. It wasn't top tier, but it was decently competitive previously. Now it's dropped down to probably like needs a good pilot to do well. I think running it in Defenders of Pelennor, you've got loads of different options in Defenders of Pelennor. You can mix fiefdoms with Rohan. You can mix it with Gondor like I have. You could add a bolt thrower in there if you want to bring the opponent to you. You can go for some lesser heroes. You can get Hurin in there, who's excellent and good value. Loads of good options. I think I'm still going to run my fiefdoms a lot. I love my fiefdoms. I'm just not going to run them as the pure fiefdoms list. It will be Defenders of Pelennor. So, yes, there we go. That's the end of that. Hope you've all enjoyed the video. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and like and subscribe if you've enjoyed it. And I hope to see you on the next one, and see you at some tournaments soon. Take care. Have a nice evening, everyone.